water you go use. To ba fe se be omi lo ma lo. If you want cook soup, now water you go use. Tori bambo na omi le rore o. If your head is hot, now water cool am. Tomo banda ba omi lo ma lo. If your child they grow, water him go use. If water kill your child, now water you go use. No. To me back mama well, omi no lo ma lo. Go someone to le shake, oh ma lo mi oh. Nothing without water. Go someone to le shake, oh ma lo mi oh. Omi you love
Water, you don't get any.
omi you love
Water, you don't get any.
If you fight them unless you wonder.
I don't wanna write this down. I wanna tell you how I feel right now. I don't wanna take no time to write this down. I wanna tell you how I feel right now. Hey, tomorrow may never come. For you or me, life is not promised. Tomorrow may never show up. For you and me, this life is not promised. I ain't no perfect man, I'm trying to do the best that I can with what it is I have. I ain't no perfect man, I'm trying to do the best that I can with what it is I have. Put my heart and soul into the song. I hope you feel me from where I am to wherever you are. I mean that sincerely. Tomorrow may never come. For you and me, life is not promised. Tomorrow may never appear. You better hold this very moment very close to you. Right now. Very close to you. Right now. So close to you. Right now. So close to you. Don't be afraid. Let it shine. My homie said, shine your light on the world. Shine your light for the world to see. My hobby said, shine your light on the world. Shine your light for the world to see. My hobby said, shine your light on the world. Shine your light for the world to see. My homie said, shine your light on the world. Shine your light for the world to see. Sometimes I get discouraged. I look around and things are so weak. People are so weak. Sometimes I feel like crying. Sometimes my heart gets heavy. Sometimes I just wanna leave and fly away. Sometimes I don't know what to do with myself. Passion takes over me. Feel like a man going insane. Lose my brain trying to maintain my thing. Hey, 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 hey. Put my heart and soul into this, y'all. I hope you feel me where I am, so wherever you are. Sometimes I don't want to be bothered. Sometimes I just want a quiet life. Me and my babies, me and my lady. Sometimes I don't want to get into no war. Sometimes I don't want to be a soldier. Sometimes I just want to be a man. But homie said, shine your light on the world. Shine your light for the world to see. My hobby said, shine your light on the world. Shine your light for the world to see. My dreamer said, shine your light on the world. Shine your light for the world to see. My elder said, shine your light on the world. Shine your light for the world to see. I want black people to be free, to be free, to be free. Want my people to be free, to be free, to be free. Want black people to be free, to be free, to be free. Want black people to be free. That's all that matters to me. 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 Black people unite and let's all get that. Gotta have one. Gotta have that love. These little slaves, they won't go one life. One man, one voice, one mic. Black people unite. Come on and do it right. Black people unite. Come on and do it right. Black people unite. Come on and get down. Gotta have one. Love, peace, and understanding. One God, one voice, one life. One man, one shine my light. Black people unite. Hop up and do it right. Black people unite. Come on and do it right. Yeah, baby, that's what I like. Yeah, baby, that's what I like. Black people. My people, black people, my people, my people. Wanna be free, gotta be free, wanna be free, gotta be free. Wanna be free, gotta be free, wanna be free, gotta be free. Knew she can make it right, working late every night. Got to make money to put food on the table. And Daddy had to do the same. He knew he had to do his part, so none of his children would get caught up in the game. Oh, so I'd be young and free. Daddy made a way for me. He paved the road so my burden is light. And Mama did just the same, dropping love just like rain. She said, guard your heart, for from it come the issues of life. Free, free, free. Got to do well in school, obey that golden rule. Treat another man like you want to be treated. Share with your brother, man. If you needed giving him a hand, for in the end you might just need him. So I'd be young and free. Daddy made a way for me. He paved the road so my burden is light. And Mama did just the same, dropping love just like rain. She said, guard your heart, for from it come the issues of life. Oh, free, free, free. Wanna be free, gotta be free, wanna be free. Wanna be free, gotta be free, wanna be free, gotta be free. Though they both left this earth, I wanna thank them for my birth and all of the gifts they left for a lifetime. It truly was a sacrifice. They didn't even think twice. 7th of 8, and Gregory will be his name. So I'd be young and free. Daddy made a way for me. He paved the road so my burden is light. Mama did just the same, dropping love just like rain. She said, guard your heart, for from it come the issues of life. Oh, free, 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 free. Wanna be free, gotta be free, wanna be free, gotta be free. Wanna be free, gotta be free, wanna be free, gotta be free. Wanna be free, gotta be free, wanna be free, gotta be free. Wanna be free, gotta be free, wanna be free, gotta be free. On Sunday, sleeping dark, but trying to duck the wrath of God. Preachers filling us with fright, he trying to tell us what he thinks is right. It really got to be some kind of nut, trying to make it real. God, where's my money? Unreal values, crass distortion, unwed mothers who want abortion. Kind of brings to mind, oh, young King Tut. He did it now, tried to make it real, compared to what? Hey, try to make it.
So when they tell you that you ain't, but you know that you are. When they tell you that you can't, but you know that you can. Just remember, success is the best payback. Success is the best payback. Yep. So put your glass up. We made it this far, waving that red, gold, green, black star. No matter who you are, success is the best payback. No matter who you are, success is the best payback. Yeah. It's the beginning of a new era. Ambassador, tell the frauds I'm a torchbearer. Afropolitan dreaming, they fiending for that album. New Huey Massacre, killing everything at random. We go to sleep in Tokyo and waking up in London. This is the life that we dreamt when we were grinding. They treated African rappers like, no, you don't belong here. Now we blowing up and they like, oh, something wrong here. Rocking SOBs and Papa Jube told me, you never hit the stage without your flag, young homie. We realizing the prize of a new foundation. Said success means nothing if you lose dedication. And living as an immigrant was hard to endure. Now we waking up to 20,000 people on tour. This for my Afropolitan dreamers is bigger than Benz and Beamers, cause nobody wanna see us successful. So when they tell you that you ain't, but you know that you are. When they tell you that you can't, but you know that you can. Just remember, success is the best payback. Success is the best payback. Yep. So put your glass up. We made it this far, waving that red, gold, green, black star. No matter who you are, success is the best payback. No matter who you are, success is the best payback. Yeah, it's dedicated to the non-believers, the ones who thought that we'll forever be underachievers. Cause where I'm from, they scheme on your dreams when you're unfamiliar. A doctor, a lawyer, anything else is just a failure. Look at us now, yeah, I'm running this town, never looking back. Give it up, this is our time, and I'm making damn sure that my team's with me. MVMT still rolling with me with a horn section when I'm on percussion. Optics on the boards, no discussion, and I spit so sick, it's a moment of clarity. Barefoot style, but you mean so when they tell you that you ain't, but you know that you are. When they tell you that you can't, but you know that you can. Just remember, success is the best payback. Success is the best payback. Yo, so put your glass up. Yeah, we made it this far, waving that red, gold, green, black star. No matter who you are, success is the best payback. No matter who you are, success is the best payback. So when they tell you that you ain't, but you know that you are. When they tell you that you can't, but you know that you can. Just remember, success is the best payback. Success is the best payback. Yep. So put your glass up. We made it this far, waving that red, gold, green, black star. No matter who you are, success is the best payback. No matter who you are, success is the best payback.
One love, one love, one love, one love. Keep it real at all times. Sometimes too real, too real, too real. And when you see them threes up, man, you already know. Already know what that means. Yeah. Now when you see them threes up, you know what they represent. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Yeah. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Yeah. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Now when you see them threes up, you know what they represent. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Yeah. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Yeah. Be real, be righteous, be relevant.
relevant. I live it more than I talk it, walking more than I walk it. Standing for something real, so I made myself a target. Yelling, I hope they hear me. Well, I think they heard us. From those who flip burgers to the white collar rich burglars. I got a purpose, it got the enemy nervous. But God gave me the stage, it's a must that I flourish. Giving them courage, even when they discourage. Me no feed them lies, feed them brain food, get them nourished. It tastes so good, just go from my hood to your hood. I'm up to greatness, I'm up to no good. I could've been rich, but that's another story. I'm trying to do it in a way that bring my mother glory and bring my father honor. They call me Jeffrey Dahmer, eating whack rappers alive. I'm the hip-hop piranha, and when I say whack, I don't mean your rhymes whack. I mean your content sucks, I can't co-sign that. Look at these mean mugs, man, every time I come around, everybody got these mean mugs. I be like, what's up with these mean mugs? They be like, DY smile. Man, you know how long it's been since I seen love? 10% of people live the life they dreamed of. The other 90 make the best with what they got. I don't focus on the not, the negative or the no. I just focus on the top. I gotta get it, let's go. Now when you see them threes up, you know what they represent. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Yeah. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Yeah. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Now when you see them threes up, you know what they represent. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Yeah. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Okay. Be real, be righteous. See what I taught him in 6th grade? It set in by the 7th, he applied it by 8, so he was mature as a freshman. Then sophomore year, he kinda got off track. His family problems had me thinking about adopting that cat, but I didn't, cause I was going through some things of my own. I was inconsistent, and we lost touch before long. Look, then 2 years later, man, I tell you no lie, I was walking on Canal when I ran into my guy. The teardrops under his eyes brought teardrops to my eyes. The teardrops under his eyes brought teardrops to my eyes. Look, I took my hands and tried to wipe them away. He said, nah, big brother, them they here to stay. Hey, what you expect when you neglect an adolescent that's already a wreck? From Compton to Tibet, we got the tender lives of these youngsters in our hands. And I know that I done dropped the ball before. Now when you see them threes up, you know what they represent. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Yeah. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Yeah. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Now when you see them threes up, you know what they represent. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Be real, be righteous, be relevant. Be real, be righteous, yo, be relevant. I'm finna pour out my heart on the 3rd verse, please. My homie got a disease that'll make most people freeze or fall to their knees. You know it's how it bees. What kills most people, he handles with ease. And when it comes to spiritual matters, we real different. We argue for hours, in the end we still feel different. See, I believe in God and he don't, so we don't see eye to eye, but we won't be blinded by the evil that try to divide the people whose minds collide for peace. So we try to find equal ground to stand on. See, God is love and love is God. So the love I show my man might guide him to God. What a thought. I'd rather be a walking testimony than a talking phony, homie. But I'll holler at you in the next song, cause right now I'm too deep in the zone.
A soldier on the run. I've seen 1,000 moons and many suns. I feel like I've been buying time. I know that it's the start of my true destiny and how I dare to dream. I held on to it so selfishly. I'm not afraid of what the masses see. It's my inner man. It's all on me, yeah. There's a million different ways I see how I can change my personality. 'Cause I
billion strong. We're singing freedom songs. We are a billion strong. We're singing freedom songs. We are a billion strong. We're singing freedom songs. We are a billion.
We're singing freedom songs.
Freedom songs. We are a billion.
This is so.
Freedom songs. We are a billion.
We are so.
Freedom songs. We are a billion strong. We're singing freedom songs. We are a billion strong. We're singing freedom songs. We are a billion strong. We're singing freedom songs. We are a billion strong. We're singing freedom songs. We are a billion strong.
How can you be sitting there telling me that you care, when every time I look around, the people suffer in the suffering in every way, in every way. Say, no, 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 no. We're the survivors, yes, the black survivors. I tell you what, some people got everything, some people got nothing, some people got hopes and dreams, some people got ways and means. No, 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 no. We're the survivors, yes, the black survivors. Yes, we're the survivors, like Daniel out of the lion's den. Survivors, survivors. So I dream, I say string. Oh, which way will we choose? We better hurry, oh hurry, oh hurry, oh now, 'cause we've got no time to lose. Some people got facts and claims, some people got pride and shame, some people got the plots and the scheme, some people got no aim, it seems. No, 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 no. Come on now. We're the survivors, yes, the black survivors. Tell you what, we're the survivors, yeah, the black survivors. Yeah, we're the survivors, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Go in the fire, but you never get burned. So I dream, I say string. The preaching and talking is done. We've got to live up. Go now, 'cause the Father time has come. Some people put the best outside. Some people keep the best inside. Some people can't stand up strong. Some people won't wait for long. We're the survivors in this age of technological humanity, scientific atrocity, atomic misphilosophy, nuclear misenergy. It's a world that forces lifelong insecurity. Together now. We're the survivors. Yeah, we're the survivors. Yes, the black survivors. We're the survivors. A good man is never honored. Survivor in his own country. Survivor. Nothing changed, nothing strange. Survivor. Nothing changed, nothing changed. Survivor. Got to survive, Lord. Survivor. We got to survive.
doing, everyone? Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. How's everybody feeling today? We are pleased to have you on our final day of the conference. We hope you all have had an amazing time. I've talked to many of you, and just, again, the continued energy from Monday, Tuesday, carrying on today, it's actually a beautiful thing. And so today, we will have a very critical discussion about the role and perception of women in this field. Now, it's clear that women have kind of taken a lead role in this space, advocating and pushing for the needs of young black men and boys of color. But sometimes that role is questioned. So we want to create a space for women who are leading this work to speak about their experiences and also their impact on this field. And so to do that, we are happy to have Allison Brown here to moderate this important discussion. Alice has served as a program officer at Open Society Foundations, and she is transitioning to become the executive director for Communities for the Just Schools Fund. Prior to Open Society Foundation, Allison served as a civil rights attorney and founded Allison Brown Consulting, working to craft education equity plans and promote equity in education. She also is the creator and host of the podcast Know It All, the ABCs of Education. Let's welcome Allison to the stage.
Good afternoon. We have an incredible panel, and I will get right into it so that we can get into this discussion. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Our first guest is Erica Atwood. Erica is the director of the Black Male Engagement for the City of Philadelphia program. Welcome, Erica. Jordan Howard is co-founder of Gen Why Not, a platform that elevates and leverages the voices of young people. She's also a student at UCLA. Welcome, Jordan. Eden Jacinto is a law school student at UCLA and studying also critical race theory. She is an educator, an organizer, and a cultural guide. Welcome, Eden. And Denise Shervington is president and CEO of the Institute of Women and Ethnic Studies. Denise? And finally, Angel Perez is executive director of the Victim Offender Reconciliation Program of Denver. Welcome, Angel. So welcome you all. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you all for joining us for this conversation. I got into my hotel room and opened the curtains, and the Superdome is right there in my view. And of course, the first image that flashed into my head was of the women, the grandmothers and mothers who died there, who died in their wheelchairs, who were abandoned and neglected by their government. And I want to just offer first a word of thanks to them for their sacrifice on that day, on those days 10 years ago. I want to offer thanks for their courage and their power and their strength in building families, nurturing communities, and really cultivating genius. I also want to invite them into this space to join us for this conversation and invite them to speak through us today as we have this conversation about what it is to be women in this work for racial justice, for social justice, for our boys and men. So I want to thank them and thank you all for allowing us this space to have this very important conversation. And my first question is to all of you. First, what are the unique strengths that women of color bring to this work for boys and men of color? And what are some of the challenges that we experience in that work?
I can start. I'll say that one of the challenges in this space, it is the safest and most harassed space I can find myself in. It is a space where I know if anything goes down, if I need anything, that there are levels and levels and levels of people who have my back. But in the space, in communities, I am consistently sexually harassed. I am consistently questioned, and it's a barrier that it makes it hard oftentimes for us to continue to dedicate our lives and our safety to this work when we are underappreciated.
Thank you, Erica. Anyone else?
I'll just add in regards to barriers, I think that the wounds that we carry ourselves as women navigating the intersects of oppression, I think are very real. And we carry those wounds individually because of the impact that we receive. And then also we carry those wounds for our families and for our communities. And so with that, I don't think that oftentimes we're denied the space for true healing. And so I think that that's a huge challenge and barrier that needs to be addressed, because the healing starts with, I think, the women who are putting themselves on the front line for this work.
And to talk about the unique strengths, I would say the unique strengths that we carry are our personal experiences as women. If we want to talk about Black men and boys and communities, what about the impact that incarceration has on a family? Who's picking up those pieces when the men and boys are locked up? Who's going down to the school to handle business? We have these experiences, and that's our unique strength that needs to be brought to the table.
And I would like to add that one of the unique strengths that I think we have always carried is the ability to get up every morning and be present and do in spite of. And so I just want to offer that up as something as simple as it is, as how powerful it is, that we tend to not give up and we keep moving.
I think for us, some barriers are like us here. Each of us, our collective, I think there's a lot of limitations we have to really go deep, to really understand what are the root causes of a lot of our problems. So I think that there's issues around it being taboo, for example, to unpack what trauma you've been through, or what intergenerational trauma you've experienced. And when it's taboo, or if you just have time limits, I gotta do that, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. And so we don't go there and we just skip that piece, the impacts that come up. So if I'm talking to my brother in Oakland about, does it make sense? Is it really about boys and men of color going through things, or is there this thing called structural racism? Is this thing called imperialism? Is there this thing called patriarchy, capitalism? Are there much big structural issues we need to address? And he was like, I'm with you, sis, but there's nothing really wrong with masculinity. And the more I unpacked it with him, he wasn't really talking about having a male pee-pee versus a woman version, right? What he was talking about was values, attachments to the notion of masculinity, like to be strong, to fight till the end, to love, you know what I mean? And I think the more we can go deep and unpack it, we can actually get to what we really need to address. And the other one is structurals. If we're fighting over money to have our needs met, to a lot of the programs I've seen, at least in Oakland where I've worked out a lot, they were running forever before there was BMOC. And then when the money came out, folks started to cut off the girls to meet the needs of the funders. And just to really think about what that means for our communities, our whole communities. And I just want to echo the strength, I think, as women of color, we have no choice but to engage. If I don't engage, I die, you know? If I don't engage in these discussions, it's over for me. So that's what we bring, a lot of love, because I love my life and I love yours, so I'm gonna engage.
So Eden, I had the opportunity to observe you in Philadelphia working with a group of young men who had come together, and they were high school age, mostly college, going into college, and you were strong in your love of them and in your care of them. And you mentioned intersectionality. You kind of started talking about intersectionality, and none of us walks into this space as only a woman or only a man or only Black or only white or only Latino. So how do you capture or work at the intersections in your work for boys and men of color?
So one way I like to think about what intersectionality is, is language, right? We need some way to communicate with each other, so there's these things called words.
So they can be very limiting, but it's an attempt at being able to communicate with each other. So the word intersectionality is noticing how, for being from the Philippines, or my family's from the Philippines, and knowing that Spain came and colonized it, there's that part of our reality. But then I'm born here in the States, what that means. And then I was born and gendered as a female, what that means. And that I was raised Catholic, what that means, but I'm queer, what that means. I'm a girl, and all of these things. And I'm privileged with education. I'm Asian, I'm Filipino, all these things. What does that, they mean? And they're not things that stack. It's not Legos, you know what I'm saying? They're not, and sometimes we get in that confusion like, oh, they're just things and you add them up. But it's not about how they add up, it's about how they collide together. Like, I'm created from these things. I don't like, this is me being a woman, and right now I'm gonna be of color, and then over there I'm gonna be queer. It's like, my experience when I'm walking with my lover down the street is not because I'm just a woman, it's not just because I'm queer, it's not just because I'm of color. It's how, when someone perceives me as all those things together and all the messages in their head, what their reaction gonna be to me is. Whether it's a, or it's a, you haven't had good dick yet. Or it's a, you're gonna go to hell. Or it's and it's not because they're thinking, well, let me react to her being a woman. And then it's how they all come together. And so I say all that to say there's a real problem when we think that there's an order of undoing oppression. Like, let me first deal with race and then we'll get to gender. You can't order it like that because they're not happening in order. They're happening all at the same time, And I know that's something that I hope people talk about. People talk a good game, but they don't necessarily do that through their organizational practices, through how they interact with folks. So it's not about an order, and I think it's about being simultaneous when we do this work, which means you have to be honest, which means you have to be thoughtful, which means you need to have the time and energy to do that. But how do you do that amidst capitalism where you're like racing, trying to get things done? You gotta go raise your baby, you gotta go do this, do that, meet a deadline. And so to me, it's how do you notice that it's not that we're trying to get all this done in capitalism, but it's actually capitalism, racism, imperialism that's leading us to have issues with boys and men of color, have issues with our girls of color. So then you have to think to yourself, is it really that I need to fix these people around me, or is it there's a much bigger structural issue we need to change? That's a harder thing to wrap your head around because there's a consequence for that. There's a consequence for, if it's not just about how you're acting and certain things, then you might have to change the school, or you might have to change healthcare, you might have to change the messages you have in your head as a facilitator, you might have to change employment structures. That's much harder to do than just to like tell someone to act right, So I just wanted to notice that one thing around domestic violence here in Katrina. We had a hearing with women and girls of color in this exact same hotel, which trips me out that we were in this exact same hotel. One of the women talked about post-Katrina, how huge the domestic violence rate went up because of the tension, the conflict. And then housing was pretty much out of the loop for a lot of folks, especially for the largest Section 8 voucher holders, Black women. And then they were saying if you wanted to go to shelter, you had to get rid of your kids if you wanted to be in a shelter. So just all these pressures that are put on the women who are holding up the family, but then the women are getting blamed. Like the women are the ones who aren't doing it and not seeing what the bigger picture is. So intersectionality to me is really about, can you really get to the root of things? And if that's too hard and too tiring, is this, maybe there's someone who can do that, or what do you need to do to get to that place? I think it's real easy to come into our jobs and hit objectives we put on a grant, and I get that, I'm not knocking that, but will that really ever change anything? Will that really shift what you're fighting for? Will that really protect his life, her life? I just want to put it like that.
So Jordan, you are yourself a young person and are representing young people in your work every day, and I wonder what it is to grow up in this movement right now and to grow into womanhood, really working and advocating around boys and men of color.
Yeah, it's been interesting to grow up. The evolution has been interesting, especially because I started off working in the space as a teenager. So I was the 15-year-old that could talk, and it was cute and it was inspirational. But now I'm older and I'm more than cute. And I'm looked at, men that I've worked with for years, they look at me different now, and it's different. And now I have to, before, I didn't have to, there was no credibility or legitimizing myself because I was the cute kid. I was the cute, inspirational kid. But now I have to legitimize myself. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's almost been a decade. So it's been interesting learning that, but then going and then looking at I'm working in groups or spaces, and now they all of a sudden they want to have a male instead of having a woman, and having that conversation, you're like, wait a minute, but I've been here. I've been doing the work. I've been building the strategy. I've been leading it, and you like it, and we see results. But now you want a man now? Why? Why am I not enough all of a sudden? And it's like, well, it'll be better if we're able to. It'll be better if we're able to uplift a man. And it's so interesting too, because it's not just in this space, because it comes from and then just all of the sexiness of BMOC work in itself comes from this patriarchal structure where we love successful men. And a successful man in our family is the best thing. My daddy is proud of me, but we're also going to be really proud of my cousin, the successful boy, And it's so it's interesting seeing that evolution growing up in that, and trying to unpack that myself as a 23-year-old. It becomes hard, and then trying to and speaking to elders and speaking to women that have faced that, it's also hard as well, because it feels like it's taboo to talk about, because if we talk about it, we lose our strength. If we talk about it, we lose our power. So I feel like it's one of the reasons why we are still having this same conversation, because we don't even want to have the uncomfortable conversation and say like, yeah, why can't I lead? Why can't I be a woman and lead? We haven't had that conversation yet, so I'm still faced with the same battles that my mother was faced with, that my grandmother was faced with, and now I have to work to ensure that my 7-year-old sister isn't faced with that.
Erica, Eden mentioned, we do this work because we must, because in order to survive as people, we must. It is imperative. And you described some of the challenges, and I wonder if you would just talk about what patriarchy looks like in this work. Does it make you tired? Does it fuel you? What do you do to combat it?
So what patriarchy looks like in this work is it looks like dismissal. It looks like in this space, last year at this conference, I am asked by a man, why do you think you can be effective in this work? It is, you stand next to me with my direct report and you ask him questions and act like I am not there. It is, having been questioned by another woman why I have male in my title. It is being, faced with racism in the workplace, in government, where people joke and say, oh, you're M-A-I-L or M-A-L-E director. Like, I'm not trying to blackmail anybody. I'm trying to make sure my brothers live. And in how that shows up on a day-to-day basis, it makes me angry. It makes me a warrior. It makes me ready to cut somebody on a daily basis. But it doesn't give me a space to be vulnerable. It doesn't give me a space to cry when I'm hurt. It doesn't allow me that safe space in the patriarchy, because you expect me to be this fighting, small, angry black woman, and that's all I get to be. That I have to identify that because of patriarchy in this space. It's the only way I'm gonna get things done.
Denise, you are a psychiatrist, and self-care is so very important. Is there, for women of color in this work for men and boys, are there ways that we should be uniquely seeking mental health support and resources?
Yes, and because I am a psychiatrist and can go off script, I'm going to ask you to permit me to look at some of the notes that I prepared, because I hear what's been said and I feel the tension. And it reminds me of our work, our work with males at the Institute of Women and Ethnic Studies, where we were lovingly referred to as quiet matriarchs. And it was a compliment that on the surface we accepted with much grace and humility. But with deeper analysis of social norms, it was noted that the role of the matriarch requires a woman to suspend her needs to meet those of others, those who are her love objects. And if we buy into the compelling narrative that black boys and men suffering requires more attention than those of black girls, women, the unstated expectation is that black women in the work do so with a compassionate zeal that trumps her noticing and acting upon her own suffering. And let me just say women of color, I apologize, I did not mean to exclude other women. For women in the work, this creates the perfect backdrop for the development of a weakened sense of self, normalization of dysfunction and trauma, and this can result in psychological conditions such as depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and substance abuse. So to do this work, we need to be deliberate and intentional about our psychological self-care. We have to become vigilant about safeguarding our right to push against and transform those parts of us which too have become hardened by all these forces. And to wrap that up, I just want to say that we need to create spaces to yield and loosen ourselves into time and to tap regularly into that inner sanctuary where we have never been wounded and where we experience tranquility and the purity of presence. In other words, to do this work, psychological self-care, we have to do that inner work of restoring and reclaiming our sense of wholeness, our self-worth, our esteem and beauty. And one last, things will fall in place. We'll eat better, we'll pamper ourselves, and so of our bodies and be.
Angel, I think it's vitally important that we come at this work from a perspective of power and not from a place of charity seeking or needing or looking for fixing. And I wonder if you would just talk about how women of color have been a source of power and strength in this work for boys and men of color.
Thank you, thank you. Let me start by giving gratitude to Creator for this space and allowing me to give voice to the many women and girls who love, honor, stand in solidarity, and fight with and for boys and men of color. I also want to lift up our ancestors and ask their permission to share my breath through my words today as we stand on land that's filled with medicine here in New Orleans. I also want to honor all the women who sit in this room today and ask that you all quickly stand up so that we all can honor you with a round of applause. Thank you. When we talk about this fight for the health on all levels and self-determination of boys and men of color, because in that we redefine the role of men, which in that very act we directly attack white supremacy, patriarchy, capitalism, racism, and all of the negative impacts of colonialism and slavery. We must see a generational shift in how we dismantle these systems that are rooted in raising up women who uplift and support, if you have been the anchors of all of that. This space here for boys and men of color is needed. So that space also needs to exist for women and girls so we can be prepared to stand in solidarity and thrive. Women and girls are the essence of harmony in our communities. And we are impacted in very unique ways, as the sister mentioned earlier. The lived experience, how we are impacted by the lived experience of boys and men is very unique. When our men and our brothers get sucked into mass, the women driving for hours, the sisters, the mothers, the aunts, their books, holding the families down back at home. In the streets, it's the women who out their hands. When our men are under 2 and 3 jobs at a time to hold it down. It is imperative that we space for women. And let us not forget
and focus on solutions. What do we do? And you know, there have been some successes. I think that the work around boys and men of color has been happening for years, and it has been really kind of growing in the community, in the field, in the interest. And what we see is My Brother's Keeper as a culmination of all of the years of labor that has built that thing. And I'm just wondering about what we are building now for women and girls of color. And we're seeing that the wave for boys and men of color has opened many opportunities for women and girls as well. We're seeing an initiative out of the White House for women and girls of color and the White House Council on Women and Girls. There are listening tours happening around the country now that foundations are sponsoring, that nonprofit organizations are doing. We're seeing important research about how Black girls are impacting them and traumatizing them in schools. What are some of the successes that you all are seeing for women and girls of color in your work?
I could say one. I saw recently. I was just I'm in school in LA, but I was in Oakland for 7. All third world people, and we run a guerrilla theater, dance, music festival. And we built a lot with a lot of the grassroots organizations there. And like I mentioned earlier, referring to Oakland a lot, because a lot of the programs that we had been going on, we've been doing for decades, and then the girls were just kind of cut out of the picture with the funding. And I think it's important to notice that. And I was talking to my brother, Sis Sway, who runs like a male leadership kind of program. And he was like, you know, I support you, sis. I just don't like it when people, you know, come for us, or come for us to the ones who are doing the work. And I'm like, you know, I'm not gonna come for you, but if you're like if you're replicating the harm, if you're teaching the boys to be a man, and that's hell of heteronormative and hell of sexist and homophobic, then I will challenge you, you know, or you're teaching them how to do things and you're only putting them in certain pockets, I will. And as we kept building and talking, it came out that folks are figuring out how to leverage a lot of this funding and the work and challenge to really think through about our community. I'm speaking a lot of Oakland profiling, and the police are the ones that are profiling. And you know the sex every day, all day on E14, on East 14th Street, commercial sex just go after the young men and say, don't pimp her, or don't call her a hoe, or do you want to get at the much larger structural issues? And what does that mean for raising our children, where you put the funding? So I was really proud to hear that Oakland is working to push and expand to make sure it's not gender exclusive. And that to me is a real success. Because if we're really, like I said earlier, trying to transform oppression, I really would love folks to make sure we're really clear about what we're trying to change. I'm not trying to change a black boy, a black male, Filipino boy, Filipino man, you know, Cambodia. I'm not trying to change that boy or that man. I want to change the condition they're in, the toxic environment, the way people are treating folks because of what messaging there is, what training there is, where funding, resources get distributed. And so I've been doing the work we're describing here, but it wasn't having just this limited framework. And I also see the limitations of resources if you don't get with what's hot in the moment. And that can be really uncomfortable for folks to hear, but I do think another big success is get the data, get the facts. Like, are you really sure you understand the data of expulsion rates for boys versus girls? Do you really actually know the data rates for criminalization? Do you know how much women catch cases and are incarcerated? You know what I mean? And all of the other things that folks talked about, being the ones to show up, being the ones to take care of the family. And I really think that the more we look at the data and the anecdotes, we might have a different idea of an approach and a solution. Making sure the solutions are coming from us, not from folks who just have the money, who feel like it's a sexy topic and then want to get down with that. I think that's an old game. And I think we know better, we can do better.
I think what I've seen work in communities, it's in the tech space. And if you have STEM programs in your different communities, what they're doing, there's a number of organizations who are doing good work around outreach for girls in STEM. And we start to look at that model for other things we do around engaging girls and in mixing of kids of color and getting them on the right pathway. I think those are some places to look for key models in how girls are being engaged and how they're not being stereotyped and how they're being pushed in an arena that is typically very patriarchal. And so I think if we're looking for models of what works, looking in that STEM space.
Mm-hmm. I think that a general philosophical approach, a framework that I sense from what we're discussing and the data that exists and some of the work that we do is that you can have a gendered analysis and a gendered approach without being exclusive. And so I think if we go about the work that we do, even if we're focused in one gendered area, we understand the impact and the intersection, and we work at whatever level we can to make sure that we're not excluding the successes that can happen in the other space, then I think that will carry us forward.
I agree with that, because I think that exclusivity is important sometimes, and sometimes those separate silos and spaces and just focuses in general, because sometimes our focuses are always different. But I think we have to understand the intersections and then find unique ways to bridge those gaps. And the tech space does it perfectly, the way you say, just like Erica said. I mean, the Black Girls Code was founded and they're unapologetic about being, no, we're not girls code, we're not girls coding, we're not doing programs for girls that are coding. We're doing coding programs in summer camps and really getting the next generation of Black girls ready to be engineers. And they were created because they wanted to find a space, and the founders were engineers, and they wanted to find a space specifically for girls and girls that look like them. And they've been unapologetic about that. But it's always interesting too, because the funding and the resources that they have are also smaller than larger coding organizations. I won't say which organization, but they're larger. You know, like the other organization that is just a simple girls who code can get the big corporations to come out. But when we say Black girls code, corporations get scared, and people get scared because, what do you mean Black girls? Well, let's break down the statistics, just like you said. Let's look at the disparities. And a lot of times we're uncomfortable talking about the truth.
So I'm gonna share and break it down to like a fundamental, something that we can take back to our hoods, to our communities, to our families when we leave here. And I think the fact that a lot of our young people can't look themselves in the mirror and repeat why they are sacred, right? And we hold circles back in Denver where I work, and one of the questions that we ask when we do this activity called the conocimiento is, why are you sacred? And the majority of these young people can't even put into words why they are sacred. And so when we can hold space for our young people, lift them up, and oftentimes that is in a gender-specific space. I'm a huge advocate of gender-specific programming, specifically coming from the lens of my experience as a woman, but I think that space is needed, and I do think that we need to figure out how we bridge that back together. But when we can support our youth and open up space for them to go through positive rites of passage where they are empowered and they can connect with their sacredness and their historical traditions to address the genetic wounds that we carry, that's when we will see fundamental change. That's when we can start healing and attacking these systems that have been these huge barriers for us for so many years.
So on that point about bridge building, yes, Jordan.
I'll be quick. We also have to teach our young people the success stories of women doing it. I mean, you have so many people that have these spaces that have created great spaces for young male leaders, and they are cultivating the next generation of really dope, profound men. But what are you teaching them about the women from the movement? Can they talk to you about the women that have led these movements for centuries and centuries? And I think that's something that's very simple that can be done. Like, it's not about just saying like, yo, Erica's dope, but like, let me tell you why Erica is dope, and let me let you know. And as a leader, as a male leader or a female leader, to the men that you are mentoring and that earn your space, teach them to uplift women. And teach them about the women that have been doing this forever.
And we don't tell our own stories.
We don't.
And Melissa and I have talked about this. We're two girls from Camden that have made some great successes in lives, and we just do the struggle. We just keep it going. And we don't tell our girls what we've been through to get to this place.
When we think about, you mentioned building bridges and gender specific and how important that is. Umi Sela of Dream Defenders, who many of you know as Phil Agnew, spoke at the Law for Black Lives convening in July, and he talked about the survivors, the black folks that survived the Middle Passage, that impossible journey that people, our ancestors, survived. And he talked about how in the awful situation, in the awful circumstances of those ships, where the enslaved Africans would turn on one another just to get a breath, just to survive, where meanwhile the real enemy was up above and breathing and living free of critique even. I'm wondering how we can, in this work for boys and men of color, how can we hold our men and boys accountable for us and to us without falling into that trap of attack?
Well, I think it starts with compassion, right? And again, I'm going to echo this idea of healing. When we have wounds, how can we effectively deal with each other when we are working from those wounds? If we don't address that, and they're genetic, there's research out there that says we pass genetic wounds on. So for me, I'm carrying my mother's wounds, I'm carrying my grandmother's wounds, my great-grandmother's wounds. And until I can effectively address those wounds, I'm gonna operate in that way. I'm gonna lash out at my black sister because, you know, they're getting more shine than us. I'm gonna lash out at my man because, he's chauvinistic and this chauvinistic violence is coming out. But when we can address those wounds, I think that that's a beginning for us to really start building something strong so that we, again, can stand in solidarity against an enemy that is literally, as my sister said, taking our lives. This is a life and death matter, and it starts with our self-healing.
I mean, I'm compelled to talk about healing. And I feel that it really starts with, just as you've done, the naming and the languaging of the pain and the wound. And then for us, recognizing that we deserve the right to sit still and be quiet, and to notice and to feel, and then to figure out for ourselves what journey do we need to that end point where, I love that you mentioned the sacred and the divine, because until as women we can truly see that in ourselves, and it has been taken away from us. We do not see a divine sense in who we are, in our gender. And until we can begin to do that and honor everyone else's right to do that as they see fit, I think we won't be able to get that sense of self-worth, that self-esteem that demands that I'm well. In my work, when I work with non-people of color, there is this, they come in and they want to be well, and they haven't normalized pain. And we need to look at how in our communities, being a little bit hurt, a little bit not so well, a little bit depressed, a little bit all of that, we run around with that. And we have to say, no, that we deserve better, we deserve well-being, we deserve health. And that it starts with our own ability to see and be still and understand where that pain is, how it's turning up, and then figure out the pathways to healing.
I like the concept of healing. I think that's important. I think as much as everyone needs to address how they've been harmed and healed by whoever, however, and whatever system, I think it's also important to notice how much you benefited from it. Like with my brother Serge, who is really wanting to hold on to his notion of masculinity, he can benefit from feeling like, I totally get it, like I'm a man, I'm strong, I'm not a punk, you know what I mean? And so, but then that means if a female in his workplace asserts her masculinity and she's now, what is it, are you gay, did you not have your father, like all these like pathologizing her, then there's a confusion there because you're attached to this notion instead of understanding like, no, you're just strong and you're just brilliant and we've had our different lives. And so I think that the healing needs to make sure we're seeing how we've been harmed and how we benefit. I really agree with making sure we have the facts. Like, I didn't really know to what degree women ran the Montgomery bus boycott. I really didn't know like how deep women were all up in it. Because on the posters and the pictures, it was all men, you know? And that's really true for a lot of our movement because that works in the United States with a patriarchal system. They only wanted to hear from the men, even though the women were up all night planning it, coordinating, training, feeding, daycare, childcare, education, literacy, all of that, you know? And I don't think it's like, well, we're just strong and we could take it. It's like, not really. It's because we don't talk about it and name it, then we don't know how to resolve certain things or just address things. And we're smarter than that. So besides the knowing the facts, I think just challenging the frameworks that we're working with. And that's why I keep going back to the systems, because if I can name what system is harmful, and still today, day to day, there can be trauma between each of us, at least I can know that even if I have to deal with your sexism or your homophobia or your racism, I still know at the end of the day, we both agree that structural racism is not cool or structural patriarchy is not cool. So I'll struggle with you and be like, okay, can you please stop saying, calling me girl, like, and you know, when my friends be like, girl, you know, but when a dude, it's like, you know, it can mean different things. It's not about getting into a game of words like, don't use this and don't say that and don't blah, blah. It's just about what's underneath it and can we go there with each other? It doesn't have to be a long political correct conversation. It's much deeper. It's much deeper about who you think should be in the front of the mic. It's much deeper about where the money should go. It's much deeper about who lives matters more, you know? And so I agree with there should be, I believe in caucuses, but I also know that when you say a men's space and a women's space, the queer kids don't know where to go, you know? And the transgender kids don't always know where to go. And those are your nieces, your daughters, your sisters, your cousins, the ones who are in the trenches right now fighting for Black lives, fighting to challenge imperialism. So it's not about, so then don't do it all, just forget it all, no way. Let's like think together, you know? Let's like really think together and not be so stuck on some of the ways we're rolling with. So I took up a lot of space on that, but I really think there's some good challenges we have, and I really hope to see some of that transform and shift with us.
So we're gonna move to Q&A in just a minute. So get your questions ready if you have them. Before we do that, Jordan, you know, Eden mentioned, you know, the young people and the need for us to move out of silos, and it feels like the young people who have built and are building this movement that we are seeing today are really existing at those intersections and are modeling how we do this work well on behalf of one another, with one another, in the trenches with one another. And I wonder if you would just talk about some of the lessons that we all can learn from this burgeoning movement right now.
I think the biggest thing that I've learned from the young people that are really taking those intersections that we all have and having the courage, they have the courage to take those intersections. Because intersectionality, there's nothing different about it. There's nothing, just the fact that, like, you know, Black Lives Matter, the women that founded Black Lives Matter, the organization, they're queer women, queer Black women, all three of them, queer Black women. And it's not, that doesn't mean that our civil rights leaders before this time weren't queer. It just means that they didn't take that intersection and say, this is me, this is who I am. So it's amazing to see the young people be courageous and be like unapologetic about themselves. And so that would be one thing definitely to learn, to like be courageous about those intersections, but also remember that those intersections exist even if we aren't open about them, and even if we don't bring them to the table. That's definitely one thing that I've learned. And creating our own platforms if we don't see a space that wants us, creating our own. Millennial Activists United out of Ferguson, they wanted their own space. They were activists that were ignited from everything that was happening in Ferguson, so they created their own organization and looked at, okay, what does that space look like for us? What do we want? What don't we want? What type of structure do we want?
So there are 2 microphones floating. Micah has one here, and the other's there in the back. So raise your hand if you have a question. In the meantime, here's one from social media. What are helpful examples of challenging allies or spaces that fail to respect women as peers or partners? Do you have suggestions on resources or tips for affinity groups?
I like restorative justice circles. I like circling up and addressing it. I like when you're doing that, mirroring what you just heard. And I like always noticing that I don't want to come for the person who said something messed up to me. I want them to not do that anymore, but I would usually ask the question, who did that to you? You know, and then trace that back to an institution, and then we can go and start a campaign against that institution. I don't need to come for you. There's enough already killing us. I really don't want to kill you, and I don't want you to kill me, you know? So there's something that's putting that in you, in us, and then we're throwing it up on each other. What is it where that is coming from, and let's go for that together.
We have a question here.
Sorry, I have a little bit of a comment and a question. So in the work that we do in North Carolina and the work that we do with young people to help to bring up leaders, the folks that we're working with is everyone, right? So it's not male, it's not female, it's not cisgendered, it's not queer, it's everyone. And that when the moment for leadership takes place, the people who need to be moved to the front to be in the lead, those that are impacted by whatever the issue is, are prepared and are ready to be in leadership, right? Because we're working together. So what I've noticed a little bit over these last few days is that women there's been like one woman on a panel, or in this moment, the conversation around women is held at the end. So if we're talking about intersectionality, what needs to be done to make sure that in every conversation, every panel, that everyone is included, right? So that we're not siloing in our own work. When we talk about patriarchy, are we siloing ourselves so that the women are at the end, or one woman on a panel, which happens often. I know it happens to me all the time.
I think, so how I avoid that space is, even with this, I submitted the request for this panel. It is doing the work to get there, forcing your way, sometimes in a room. I'm often the only face of color in a room. I am often the only woman in a room. I can sometimes be the youngest person in the room, but you're still going to hear from me, and it's not shying away from those opportunities, or taking even those opportunities to be heard. It's going to continually be struggled. We end up in spaces where we struggle just as people of color, and then as women, if you're queer, all these things that happen, but you have to keep demanding to be heard, and that's what I think gets us in these spaces, and that's what gets us to this place and stage. Is demanding to be heard.
And then I think as an administrator, as an admin, as a conference organizer, like we all are going back to our organizations, and we all are in charge of doing things. And one of the things at Gen Y Not that I always love, whenever we would do like a web show or a web series or have a conversation, we are very intentional about the diversity of experiences and people. And like we literally, I love it because the thing that I love is that we always have to say, we need a white man, we need a white girl, because we have so many different other cultures represented. And I like having that discussion, like, okay, usually I'm the only black one, or usually we don't see usually we don't see that black face talking about politics, but we need to have conversations like that. Like, okay, can you please find a Native American young person and have them speak? Okay, we have too many men, we need more women. Can you find not just one woman, we need multiple women, but we need to have those conversations, and we need to be serious about that, and we need to be intentional about that.
And so to echo off of that, I think it's, I've seen foundations and people in really strong positions of power trying to have the faces and the image, but then in that world, tokenizing. So you just want them to show up to be like, but so the question is, are they part of the planning? Are they part of thinking through what the objectives are? Or are they getting the training, the leadership, the funding, the resources to even show up to the thing, like childcare, you know what I mean? So I think it's making sure that while I really love the thinking through to make sure we're doing what we're doing. If we want to really uplift folks, what does that mean for how we're planning, who should show up, making sure there's resources available, but then also how does that translate into I think everything you just said, sis, around who ends up speaking and when and what that means. And different moments, I do think different people need to be uplifted, depending on what the issue is. But I think that really requires a collective dialogue. It requires making that discussion you just said. And from what I see, especially in the nonprofit world, and I get it, you know, I'm not knocking you because you didn't set up the reporting system, is that you don't always have time for it. So how do we slow down the machine and make time for that without it feeling, people being scared like it's kumbaya, but like, no, we're really transforming things here. We're transforming how to interact. And I think we need tools for that. Not everyone knows how to listen to each other. Not everyone knows how to do a round robin and hear from each other in a timely way to still get all of the work done. You know, and I think a lot of us have those tools, and we need to be practicing them and sharing them with each other. I really hope people got that from this conference, you know.
So we have 2 more questions, one here and one here.
My name is Lequan Muhammad. I'm from Los Angeles. And I would just like to say, can I get a round for our panelists up there? Because they're talking real life right now. It's beautiful. Okay, my question is, how can I, as a young man in high school, help my peers understand the role of women in the BMOC work?
How can he, as a young
So
man,
I would say, and I would say not only to you, but young brother, but to everybody in here. I mean, I think like I get kind of triggered when the thought comes to my head about folks feeling like coming to a conference like this or going to your office is your contribution to the work, right? One of the things that we teach our young people is that you have to live this work. It's not a conference. It's not, you know, punching in a time card at work, and all of the work that we do at our various organizations is amazing work. But really, when the rubber hits the road, it's how we are interacting with each other on a daily basis in our communities. And so I will say to you, like really living what you are taking in today as the core of your values, right? Walking in your sacredness, walking in your sacred word, and holding that sacredness for your peers, right? Because when a certain song comes on and it's disrespecting women and you're bobbing your head to that and singing that, your peers are watching, right? And then they're gonna say, well, you're spitting all this stuff about, you know, Black Lives Matter or down with patriarchy, but then you do this. So I think that's one fundamental thing that I really try to instill in, you know, my children that I've birthed, my community children, is that we have to walk this talk every single day. And my, you know, maestros and maestras have been very, very adamant about ensuring that we do that. Because when that happens, you know, it's like the corny cliche commercial when you know, I do something good for you and it just kind of trickles down and trickles down. But when you stand in that power and you be what you say you want to see from others, then change will start happening for those young people around you.
And I will say, as a young person, don't be afraid to call out what you see happening wrong. Someone will have your back. I work with young folks. I'm on the board of an organization, PYPM, and I spend a lot of time with our kids, and they have each other's back. When something goes down, they make sure they look out for one another. And so do that and have each other's back and stand up for what you know to be wrong and call it out and not be afraid.
So we have one more question.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very grateful to be in this space and grateful for this dialogue. Thank you, each and every one of you, for opening your hearts and sharing your words right here, right now, and all the work that you each do. I was listening, and among the many things I'm thinking and feeling, I was listening from a trans queer perspective, on the ground, working with myself, our queer peoples, and trans folks. I'm listening, I'm wondering about the role, that identity, those voices within this work, and the challenges that I'm hearing when I hear boys and men of color work, girls and women of color work, and I'm listening from that perspective. And yes, so what are the strengths that trans and queer folks are bringing to this work? What are the challenges that we are seeing, and how are we moving together on all of this? Because I know we're all talking about being whole, and that's part of being whole too, yeah?
So I can speak from a space of being an ally, and not only is patriarchy an issue, homophobia is an incredible issue within the Black community and the work that I do. I fight long and hard to make sure there are diverse voices at the table. And as an ally, I end up being a bridge that allows for that, and a co-convener that allows for gay men to have a voice at the table in the movement because of the heteronormative behavior that exists within our community. It's a struggle because brothers don't make gay brothers feel comfortable sitting at the table, and we're all dying the same way. And it's ridiculous and it's really sad. I struggle with that with my commission at home, trying to get the voice of gay men at a table. And I'm really adamant about it, and I get kind of the side eye when I mention it. And it's heartbreaking.
I also think that at core, what's very disheartening is that we are also siloed and that we don't experience ourselves and each other as deserving human beings. So no matter what our differences are, we still have a space wherein we can respect the humanity. And I think it goes very deep into some of the social and cultural norms from which we can even think that if we disagree with someone or a country, we can kill them, or if we don't share the same kinds of views or experiences, identities, that we can marginalize. And I think we're going to have to wake up as a society and think about what kind of a world are we creating at multiple levels. And I think the more we do that, the better we won't even have to have these conversations. Everyone will be allowed to be whole.
So I really quickly, so I appreciate this screen right here because I'm looking at tweets. And I just want to give breath and word to this. I just saw a tweet from a sister who said, "Where is the Native woman's voice in this?" And so I want to honor that. And I want to honor that there has been, this is a movement for folks who have experienced colonialism and slavery in this country. I want to lift up the masses of Mexicano youth that are being targeted by ICE, that are being assaulted, Native youth who are being expelled and pushed out of school into the prison industrial complex. I think that it's really, really critical that we begin having a very inclusive conversations, because at times throughout these 3 days, I haven't really experienced that on this screen, me and hopefully everyone.
I want to comment on that. We in this space, because the movement tends to be black men and boys, and we have these conversations around it being a predominantly black space, there's an assumption that when we talk about people of color, and I've been challenged by this by a friend who says, when I think people of color, I assume black people. And I think that in this space, and this is the only space that I know that exists that is welcoming to all people. And I think that while it is welcoming, we all don't know how to find one another because we operate in these silos. And so we have to come out of our silos, and that includes our Native brothers and sisters, our Latino brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers and sisters that are doing this work, kind of come to us and tell us and show us. And sometimes I feel like we don't talk to one another. And that's not, and I'm not putting blame on anyone, I'm just saying it exists. And it exists because the divide and conquer exists. And so we have to oftentimes just kind of find one another and really talk to one another in the space. It's hard to find a diverse community. And when I'm trying to do work in Philadelphia, it is. Honestly, it's because we operate in silos.
So Eden and then Angel.
So I agree. I always want things to be inclusive in the sense that we can hear from folks, but I also really believe in being honest and honoring where issues are. So for me, when I think of girls of color, I don't think about maybe some of my Filipino sisters like me who had, I had a Catholic education, but I had a single mom who worked 4 jobs. Me and my mom, my sister shared a room that was like a little bit bigger than this square, and I didn't eat regularly. So even though I still had a lot of low income, like not stable housing, not stable food, my education was my ticket out. And so, you know, I had different pathways. And so I would think twice about saying, let's give it to all the girls of color. I really want to think what's happening in your locality, where are the resources needed. And I think that's what I mean by honest and honoring. Now, I wouldn't want to be inclusive just so we, you know, to like a head count, you know what I'm saying? Like I want it to be diverse, not diverse, but just being like to honor all of us and to really recognize where we at, like resource-wise and subordination, and you know what do we need? And so I want to address the issue around about what is the role of queer and trans folks, because just to be real, a lot of leadership I see is often by queer and trans folks, even if they don't tell you that they're queer because they're hiding from you. I was raised Catholic, you know what I'm saying? Like church every Friday and Sunday. I could break it down. I can break down the dogma, the doctrine, and I never felt forced, ever. The one little thing is I was totally scared about being gay. And so I hated myself, really hated myself. You know, it's like, nasty, dirty, you know, and no one came up to me and said, you dirty little nasty. But it was in the messaging. It was in the what does look good. It was in how to be a woman. And it's so deep because I was like, but I know no one hates me, but I really feel that and believe that, and I've heard that. And so if I didn't have spaces to see and unpack the religion in my homeland, I don't know how religion's played in all of you, but Catholicism in the Philippines was used to take over the land, to colonize. There were queer folks before the church came. The Tagalogs the queer folks were lead women. They were called by the whole structure and said, you got killed. I don't understand it has been. And I don't love to be gay. To do something that I know people are gonna clown. I don't want that. It's been so painful, you know, but you know what I mean? I would do anything for her. Can you honor that? No, I did not get raped. I was not molested. You know what I mean? I don't hate my daddy, you know? Like, can you honor that? And then if you do, guess what? You got somebody who is gonna fucking fight for you till the end. To the end, I'm gonna fight with you. But if you cut me off and you cut me down, you just lost a soldier. You lost a warrior. And to think about that, you know?
Angel, and then we have to.
So I'm going to keep it brief. I would just say, like, a lot of introspection, right? Like, we need to, instead of, let's take a look at what we need to do and how we can be in that, right? We can and reach out to us. There needs to be reciprocity there, and then move from there.
In thinking this.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining the conversation.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it.
So I really wanted in attendance, pleasure to be your country, trying of our die and suffer, tell the story. And I had the opportunity to sit in one of the settings and upping it. And I think that's what we are worthy of protecting that genius in all its manifestations and lifting it up. And so when I leave here today, first of all, many of you will be sources. I'll be calling you to talk to you. But also filled with the spirit that there are people out here pushing for just injustice and what's right, and out of love and caring. So I appreciate that. So now while my time is done, I want to hand the event back over to Militia DeShields. She's the conference director and a partner at Frontline Solutions. Again, thank you all very much.
Thanks so much. All have been just such a pleasure the last. I hope that certainly will. A big take for years, and so thank you all. That is really can take us to you so that we can along. So, a couple mentioned people by name. Talk about some people to advisory committee, our staff and scenes to make this happen. Thank you. So in our days, and that's kind of so we are a couple of days. It was great, and he's in of more Burns, Carolina, which focused on executive director Lee and.
Afternoon, activist, and a little bit would hold a little bit collectively that will allow us in this nation to do, right? The last 3 days, about so many times, what that does, it takes us out of our bodies, right? And we forget to breathe. And breath is essential because breath allows you to do several things. The first thing is it allows you to stay alive, right? If you're not breathing, you're not alive. It allows you to speak your truth. Yeah? It allows you to pray, to meditate, to testify, to sing, to laugh. Breath is incredible. But oftentimes that we not at the end of our off talk.
I think they're in South. Going to do bread. Name or any names. Give thanks the moment. Out.
Nia Wilson, Mary, and Charlie.
But we're going to, and we'll face.
So what you are going to do is you're going to take a deep breath in. You give it to the direction. Okay? So it'll be on account of, we are also going to an opportunity standing near you. So you will breathe as a gift. Our time with this. So it's going to be okay. Okay? So we'll do 3, extend it out. And then turn. Count of 3. 3. Stay in. Patient to count of 3. It out. Then. It's about to go gift. It's going to be really. And we will take a deep breath.